Hi, this is Doug with Ultimate Lighting Solutions. Going to give a quick how-to video on installing Feniex mirror beam caps on a 2020 Suburban. This will also work for the Tahoe. I've already removed the factory beauty ring, the beauty cap from the mirror, the outer cap. Basically what I did is if you grab the inside kind of briskly and kind of pop it off from the mirror, it will come off. There are some tabs along the top side and then along the bottom where it snaps into place as well. So there's probably a different way to do that, or more than one way to do it, but that's the way that works best for me. We're going to be installing a pair of mirror caps. These are Fusion, they're dual color, they're red, white. I've already got the driver's side set up and it is synchronized with the Go Rhino push bumper with Feniex lights. So we'll move to the inside of the door next. So inside the door, we're going to remove two plastic trim caps. There's one behind the handle, and then there is another one here in the grab handle on the side. You can use a small pick tool, pop that out, and then down in the corner, there's another place to pry from. After that, there is a total of 3 7mm screws. There's one here, 2 in this spot, and then there's 2 below the door, one here and one here. So I've got the trim panels removed. There's a 7mm here, like I said, behind the handle, 2 down in the door armrest. I use a bent angled tip. It's just a little pick tool. Usually comes in like a set of 4. There's a couple of different tips, but this angled works the best. Some other tools that I have is a 10mm socket for the driver. It's going to remove the 3 10mm bolts holding the mirror assembly together. I've got a trim removal tool and then just a long bent angled flathead screwdriver to help pry. Easiest way to pry this door panel off, I find, and again, there's going to be more than one way to do this. On this inside edge, down right by the speaker, there's a good spot to get a grab of. I will usually squat down and put my knee against the door itself and then pry briskly to pop the caps loose. You can also use the trim removal tools. Don't pull it off too quickly and too far. You still have to remove the linkage for the door. It's in here, and then we've got a wiring assembly for the power window up and down, and then we need to pay attention to the door lock indicator. So we'll get the panel off and I'll show you some things inside the door as well. So with the door panel removed, it's just kind of resting in place. I wanted to go over some of the harnesses. This is the power harness for the window and some other mechanisms that for the pass-through. So we're gonna pick that up, the little red lever, and then pull the silver or the gray handle up, and then that's gonna pop off, and there's a small Christmas tree holding that in. And then inside the door assembly itself, if you squeeze this, pull it back, it will release, and then twist it over and pop it up, and it pulls the ball out of the socket. And again, this is just a release clip from the door latch assembly. So we've got the door panel removed. This is the passenger door, so we're gonna go ahead and pop up this pin holding the trim on. There's another one here on the inside. We're just gonna remove those, and then we're gonna remove this entire plastic trim on the top side of the window. There is a small pin on the inside. The rest of it will basically just fall off, if you will, as soon as you pry on it. So we're gonna set that to the side. And then that's gonna give us access to our mirror harness here, and then as well as those 3 10mm bolts that we have to deal with. We are gonna pass this through the factory boot. We'll remove the speaker. There's 1 7mm bolt here, and then we're gonna go through the door boot from this side of the door into the door cavity, out of the boot into the passenger compartment. So I wanted to show you before everything gets put back together what I did. The wire is routed through the boot into the door cavity, and then from the door cavity it goes through the factory wiring boot. That pops off. Again, I use that long angled flathead screwdriver. If you push on the top of that boot cover, for the plug, it will usually pop right off, and then I actually push the harness or that rubber boot into the door cavity itself. It's kind of hard to see here, but I push it inside the door so I have a little bit more room to maneuver the wires. Sometimes spraying a little bit of WD-40 or some other lubricant or silicone inside there will help the wire move through that rubber boot. The wire goes through the door, through the factory harness here, and then into the mirror assembly. If you pop off the bottom, there's a little access panel. You can route the wire following the factory through the hinge opening for the folding mirror, and then we're just going to connect the end of this wire to our mirror assembly. Okay, so now the mirror is back in place. I've prepped the mirror surface with the 3M VHB promoter, the application pads, both sides, both the mirror cap and the Feniex mirror cap, so both sides have been prepped. Just a word to the wise, when you use that 3M promoter and you use VHB tape, make sure that you clean your hands well. Otherwise that VHB has a tendency to stick to your fingers, and sometimes it can get pretty sticky. I do keep a tub of towels around the shop. It's great for cleaning the grease and oil and stuff off your hand. So using alcohol prep pads and the 3M promoter for the mirror cap is the best application for that product. So next we're going to put the mirror assembly on the factory mirror cap by removing the tape and setting it in place. Keep in mind, once you put this thing on, it's set, so make sure that you align all the gaps and clearances and stuff on the inside, and make sure that you've got good fitment on the outside, making sure that your wires are not sticking out and getting in the tape as well. So we'll be back in just a second to show you the finished product. So we've got the mirror cap in place, fitment's been checked. We still have articulation of the mirror, so there's nothing there. We're gonna put the trim cap back on, make sure all the wires are tucked out of the way appropriately, and then we are gonna work on installing the interior panel. We're gonna zip tie up some of these wires to the factory harness to get those out of the way, and then we're gonna pull this wire through the factory boot to the inside into the cabin, and then route it to the center console. For this application, we're using a 20 gauge 4-conductor wire. There are 4 wires coming out of the Fusion, so we're taking advantage of mode 1, mode 2, the synchronization with the lights on the push bumper, and then the ground, of course. So we're gonna zip tie this up, clean up the wiring, get it all put back together, and we'll see you soon. So we've got just about most of the trim buttoned up. The rubber boot is back in place on both the vehicle side and the door side. We left a little service loop in here just in case we have a failure of the mirror cap, the mirror breaks off, whatever the case may be. We've got a little bit of additional wire here so that a new wire doesn't need to be run all the way through. The speaker's back in place. Just one thing, this is the longest screw in all of the 7mm that come out. So if you don't separate your screws and you get them all messed up, all 4 of the other screws, the one that goes in the door handle, the 2 that go in the grab handle, and then the 2 on the bottom of the door trim, all 4 of those are the same length screws. One thing I want to point out, this weather seal for the window at the top, it will come off with the door panel. You need to take it off of the door panel and install the clips in these little sockets before you put that door panel on. So there's 5 of those, and push them in. They just kind of snap into that little separation there, that little gap. Slide them in there, and then you can push the weather stripping down on top of that. And then once you put the door trim back on, the door trim will snap into place with those door pins. Make sure that the door indicator, the lock indicator, is in the up position. It'll help push through the door. And then just make sure that everything else is kind of out of the way and ready to be plugged back in.